Greetings. I'm the tail guy. My name is Albert McCullough. I lead a tortured life, professional engineer and also a professional wetland scientist, but I've been doing living shoreline since 1996. So with that, let's get off to the races. Okay? My first part of the talk is going to be about the design philosophy, how I view the living shoreline world. And the second part is going to be two examples, one on the eastern shore of Maryland, one's on the western shore of Maryland, both high energy sites. But bear in mind, these processes are scalable. Even the high energy sites, you can scale it down to a smaller energy site. So let's get going. Fundamental design questions that rattle through my mind, and this kind of paraphrases what this conference is about. Where has the shoreline been? Where is the shoreline now? Where should the shoreline go? That's the things that we should be thinking about, a temporal type of thought process. So let's think about building Frankenstein with the living shoreline. I'll probably make people's ears bleed here with my voice, but let's keep going. The first part is past life. Where's that shoreline been? How's it eroding? Where's it going to? Second part, the structure, the bones of the shoreline. Structure, geometry, orientation, and location from shore. Next one, the flesh, the planting substrate, the vegetation type and tolerance. And the last part is the actual energy. What's being imparted on that shoreline? How's it coming into the shoreline? So what I'm going to say is God bless the Dutch. And that's what we heard this morning. And this is from a Dutch coastal engineer. He's Pierre Bruin. And what he has is all the nature parts and what man's counterparts are. Shore rock, oyster reef, lots around the Chesapeake Bay back in the day. They're pretty much gone. Bay Island, Rock Headland, on and on it goes. And on the other side is the man's equivalent parts to it. Survey says, which one do you think is the most used? I would think it's the coast of Maine. Let's bring the lobster back to the Chesapeake Bay. I think that's a good, worthy goal to have. But we have a plethora of this. We've heard it all during this morning of what's going on. So, waves, thy friend and hopefully not thy foe. And remember, waves can be this big. They can be that big. But how they come in and interact with the shoreline, that's what happens with the shoreline processes. Like, for example, there's really two different types of wave generation. One's generated by wind, second by boats. That's pretty much it, the big categories. So from the wind side, typically we use is wind records. And in Chesapeake Bay, we use the Thomas Point Lighthouse, at least I do, because it's the most longest term record in the bay. And the wave prediction, it's a limited fetch condition. In other words, it's constrained by amount of open water. So typically what we use is a wave generation with restricted fetches. Now in Maryland, it's called bimodal. Our Canadian friends blow down upon us upon the wintertime from the northwest, and our retired Florida retirees, they come bring up the warm winds from the south. So it's really just two different ways for the winds to be generated. For boat wake waves, boats basically go from channel marker to channel marker. When you go look on the back of the boat, look how they propagate off the center line. They're about 35 degrees off the center line of the boat. Now for the pirates in the bay, you would like to use is a spread. 25 degree, 45 degree. You know, the 4th of July weekend, it might be 15 degree. I'm just kidding. but you want to do it by 4 conditions, going to port, going to bay, and see what's going on. Okay, pretty simple. It's physical stuff, just like when light goes through a prism. Waves behave similar by light by diffracting, refracting, and when they encounter an object. It could be a shopping cart. It could be a 4-ton piece of rock. But then once a wave hits an object, it bends, and then it comes into the shoreline. Do you want it to do good work like a teenager? Obstruct it in the proper way to make sure it does good work for you. Scott had this up here. I said, God bless the Dutch, God bless the Aussies. Now, this is a stable wave, bay wave crest relation by Sylvester and Sue. And they have the parabolic form, just like those nautical shells. They go around and around. But one thing I want to point out is that the upland control head point. Has everybody seen the Pink Panther cartoon where he's vacuuming, he gets his tail stuck in the vacuum, and he gets sucked in the vacuum, all of a sudden the vacuum gets sucked, and the whole thing disappears? That's pretty much what happens with these upland headland control points. And I'll show you a little thing coming up. Basically, they self-consume themselves, and all of a sudden the energy gets imparted on the back part of the cove. This is a Love Point up in Kent Island. And if you look, this is a rock structure that went completely around. If you see on the other side, it's a green one, right? Right in here. That's doing the work. You need rock there. But this rock went this way. It's shoaling on the backside. That's useless material. And then over here, you actually see a little shoaling going on this side. So the shoreline does tell us clues what's going on. So they provide clues that correlate with long-term trends. Don't just take what you see that day. You should go up there and look up and make your predictions. And do they line up with the design predictions, or don't they? If they don't, you better go in full retreat and look again. So each shoreline has a unique story. I'm not a cookie cutter. I like looking at the different things and how they relate. So I think for us to make proper decisions in design, you have to go through and really look at it. Okay, on to the two projects. The first one on the western shore is the Smithsonian project. It's located in Edgewater, Maryland. Shoreline length is about 3,800 feet. Longest shoreline fetch is 14.5 miles to the northeast. The other one is the Eastern Neck National Wildlife Refuge. It's located Eastern Neck, well, obviously the Wildlife Refuge. Shoreline length is 3,100 feet. Longest fetch is 6.1 miles to the north-northeast. Two similar high-energy projects, but they're on different parts of the bay. Obviously, the western shore, you have millions of people with all their toys associated with it. Eastern shores, we raise chickens, okay? So let's go talk about the National Wildlife Refuge first. What happened, there's in Hale Creek, it's filled with submerged aquatic vegetation. It was recorded as one of the 5 best waterfowl habitats in the Maryland, only separated by a narrow isthmus at the back of the cove. And there's a gentleman here from Fish and Wildlife, Matt, to give you more clues about this. They did aerial surveys before construction, and it said that isthmus was getting ready to breach. So what they did, the main goal was to prevent that breaching and to try to preserve it and enhance it. So this is what I was talking about with the self-consuming headland points. The top one is 1957 to 1964, 7-year period, on average losing about a half acre a year. The bottom one is from 1964 to 1989. Over that 25-year period, it was losing about a tenth of an acre a year. So what happened was this headland point went back, stressed the back of the cove, and you see right here it pretty much held stable. So these headland protection points, again, they could be a very small scale, looking at a very small shoreline, or a larger scale. Okay, here's the design. Basically 2 headland points. I'm going back to our friends the Dutch. Submerged breakwater, which is the arc of stone in between. The 2 headland points, the purple line is from the summer winds coming up. And if you notice right here, where that eroding part, where it's don't self-consume, extend the rock back into the bank. The winter winds is coming from this way, the same thing. But you notice the rock is tucked into the bank beyond where the actual erosion is. And then in the back part of the cove, we just pretty much put sand in. And let's see what happened. Construction happened in 2009, 3rd week of July to 3rd week in August. All done by Water Access, and the contractor's the back in the room, Wes Matho. And then we actually planted in the 2nd week of September. Not a good idea, because what we did, we literally just dumped the sand in the back part of the cove and let the wave find its own way. I think we just planted too soon. So what were the lessons learned? And this is the project itself. Here's the back part of the isthmus. This is the Hale Creek, where all the submerged aquatic vegetation is. Headland structure, there's an arc of stone in between. What happened was the stable beach shape lined up well with the design prediction. Good news. I wasn't getting sued. Next part, the reef is extensively colonized with mussels and oysters, but the oysters were initially seeded. They didn't come in on their own. Diversity of fish species increased. This is all anecdotal from Fish and Wildlife Service. That's what they told me. And the submerged aquatic vegetation colonized came in big time back in this part area. Got to cut back on the coffee. All right. So planting was executed way too early. We had some float outs, but we went back in and replanted it. And the total construction cost, which I think that's one thing we have to start talking about, because to make these things palatable to the public at large, you got to keep them competitive with the traditional system. But it was a $445,000 project. It worked out to be $140 per running foot, which is, I don't think it's too bad for a high energy system. Okay, SERC. This is what I did: perform historical shoreline recession, execute the wave analysis, and if it compared well with the historical to the predicted, it means we're doing pretty good. If it doesn't, go back to the tried and true. I don't call them cookie cutters, but they're known relationships. Okay, so, did I just turn this off? Let me go this way. Okay, so the historic shoreline analysis. From 1899, it's like a rainbow. Up to the red was 2007. The winter wave condition, it's coming this way. The shoreline eroded that way. The prediction does not line up with observed. Therefore, what do you do? Well, what we did, we actually went through and, well, we constructed it, and we used the Scott's method for the coves. 1.65 ratio for the opening, a 1 ratio for the back part, and use that to assign where the rock structures are with the shoreline. Let me just go back one more. But what happened was, it's a grant-funded project. When we got the bids in, we actually had extra monies in the grant fund. But you really don't know what you really have till you get done the construction, because things kind of go bump in the night, a little curveball here and there. So we did have some extra material, but we really didn't know right till the end. But right at the end, when we trended it, I said, maybe it's boat wake waves. Western Shore, that might be what the problem is. And sure enough, it did. So we ran through the boat wake wave analysis, and we had to modify the second phase. And the green is the actual as-built structure. The other ones, it was too much material, and hence money. So, and you can see how the shoreline was, all eroded. Let me see, come back, come to Papa. You see how the shoreline's eroded with a lot of trees down there. There was a big bluff. That was the only thing I wanted to point out. Okay, so here's what it is. This is on Google Earth now. The structure itself, this is in the Weston Rhodes River, right at the point there. This is what the resulting bay shape is when it with the boat wake wave analysis. And this is like the relationship that you have, when you're with the coves. So this is the final thing. Lesson learned: Western Shore's shorelines more boat wave dominated than by wind. Measured shoreline lined up well again with a stable abatement with the boat wake wave prediction. Top of sandbank, it's up to about +3. It's starting to be colonized by seed rain from the adjacent trees. This was a bit more expensive, $637,000 for 1,100 feet. Works out to be about $579 per running foot. And with that, that's all, folks. So.